Another film I watched recently was Anatomy of a Fall, the French produced, largely English language film, which has been nominated for a number of Oscars this year, including Best Picture, Best Director for Justine Triet, and Best Actress for Sandra Hüller. It's the story of Sandra, a novelist, who lives with her husband and their blinded son in a chalet in the French Alps. One day, after something of an argument, and while their son has gone for a walk with his guide dog, her husband falls from a high balcony and dies of his injuries. The question is whether or not he was pushed or fell of his own accord, and the film goes over a great deal of time exploring these possibilities, eventually leading to Sandra going on trial for murder. I found this to be wildly overrated. Um, it is not an interesting film. It is not a film that deals with, I think, any particularly engaging subject matter, aside from perhaps the sexism of the French establishment and the way that she's treated in the court by her prosecutor. Much of the time, the film is extremely slow, it is extremely talky, it is extremely flat and bland in its execution. I am shocked that this is considered to be one of the 5 best directed films of the year because it looks like an episode of Doctors. It is so blandly lit, blandly edited. There is so little craft to it. It really looks like a cheap student production that is entirely competent with flat, even lighting, mechanical editing, minimalist, boring performances. These are not interesting people. I think it seems very much of a piece with European filmmaking trends that it's about bourgeois people and their very important bourgeois lives. Um, but it's a film without any real interest. Um, I sat through the whole thing. I had to watch it in 2 halves, but I found it almost monumentally uninteresting. It's over 2.5 hours long, and it never engages the interest after the first 10 minutes where the husband's body is found. Um, it's extremely slow. There's no music score. There's no sense of atmosphere. There's no sense of mood. There's no sense of interesting photography or sense of trying to use photography or sound to enhance atmosphere. There is a trick later on where we see the son giving testimony about his father, and we see him speaking, or rather, we hear him speaking and see in flashback his father saying um, his words. So effectively, like he's putting his words in his father's mouth that, that might then change the course of the trial. But there is so little of this. There's so little of anything in this film. I found it very, very hard to care about what was going on. It seems an almost totally inconsequential film. The idea that it won the Palme d'Or, I find, well, they give the Palme d'Or to all sorts of things, so God knows. But the notion that this is an acclaimed major film, that it's one of the best films of the year, that it has an incredibly insightful script, I find completely ridiculous. The film does nothing, says nothing. I don't know what the point of this is. I can't recommend it to anyone because why would you spend 2.5 hours watching a film that is just nothing, that looks like a student technical exercise in filming something that looks like a bland, churned out soap opera and has exactly as much depth?